Okay, well, I have put some hours onto this thing in the time I've had it. If you are a influencer reviewer of this product and you have not put your time in and did it after a day, a review, then you have done this product an injustice. I feel like I have just touched the surface of this thing and I have put a ton of time into it. So I'm going to tell you some bugs, some things I don't like, some things that I really like. We're going to get into it in just a second here, but I want to do full disclosure. I am an influencer of My Arcade, but they do not review my videos, and all these opinions are my own. Now, don't forget to give this a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Now, the main purpose of this video is to go over some of the systems that I have working here, some of the games, some of the bugs, some of the workarounds of certain things. I am trying to work with My Arcade to get rid of all the bugs, but they did tell me that my unit may not be up to date on the correct firmware, so I may have more bugs than a retailer. Now, I'm not sure how accurate that is. I looked at my firmware and it did appear to be up to date. If you go into the settings, you'll see that you can check your firmware and make sure it's up to date. Now, I do like the screen brightness option on this first setting here, but going down to update, software update, it says I'm on firmware version 1.0 and it says it's up to date. So I don't know how accurate that is, that my unit is going to act differently than anyone else's. Okay, let's boot it up and go over some of the systems on it. I have Dreamcast on here. I'm not going to go through that. I've seen some of that running, not the greatest. It does have Game Boy Advanced. You can play any of your Game Boy Advanced games on here. It also has Game Boy Color. You'll get to play some of your favorites, including Tetris, on your Game Boy Color. Then we'll skip over MAME for now. We'll go to NES. There's one problem with NES, and that is that the A-B buttons are flipped, and this is one problem with the unit itself when you're talking about adding on games and side loading. The NES games, the button is flipped A and B. You might be able to get used to it, but we really need to be able to swap those buttons. Moving down to Sega CD. Yes, you can run Sega CD on here, and it runs fine. I didn't see any problems with it. You will enjoy this system being on the game. I booted up some NHL 94 as well. Runs really well, and I liked that we could run this platform. Moving down, Sega Genesis, we know that works. Super Nintendo. One issue here, you're going to want to use FSC ROMs, not SMC. I had some problems with some SMCs. Not all of them were working for some reason. So make sure you use FSC ROMs. And you're also, I think you're going to have the button flip problem as well. I didn't really verify, but I'm pretty sure the AB buttons are flipped as well on the Super Nintendo. So again, need to get into that front end and be able to manipulate the controls. Okay, moving on to TurboGrafx 16, PC Engine. Just use your PCE files and you will be able to run those games as well. Some of your favorites like R-Type, Bonk's Adventure, etc. Atari 2600, that runs the same. That's fairly good. Atari 5200, we'll get back to that in a second, but that runs fine. Atari 7800, same thing. All those emulators were already built in Intellivision. All right, now we're talking. Let's take a look at some Intellivision games. If you want to run these, you have to get the GROM and the exec bins into the folder of Intellivision in order to run Intellivision games. Here's some Astro Smash, works fine. Not all the games will work from a button configuration standpoint. I couldn't figure out some of the buttons, like on Bump and Jump, it wasn't working. But as you see here in Skiing, the number pad works fine. You use the number pad, hit enter, and then you use the D-pad, obviously, to maneuver the player or the person in the game. So again, the number pad does work, but it'd be great to get into those control setups. Okay, let's look at the Bandai WonderSwan system. I don't know what this is, but it's on there and it works for anybody who does have this or remember it. It's on there. Go ahead and load your ROMs and they will play. All right, the Neo Geo Pocket Color, same thing here. Load your ROMs. Good to go. NGC ROMs. Atari 2600 paddle. Let's talk about this really quick. You've seen people run Kaboom, and yes, it does work. I did have one game where the spinner didn't work, So I just had to reset, and then it worked fine. But there is one game I do want to go over as I tested some of them. I was getting excited for Indy 500 because on the main system, on the built-in games, you have to use the D-pad. So I was hoping to be able to use the spinner, but it did not work. It just kept spinning my race car driver, and that was a little disappointing for that. You have to use the D-pad on that as well. Links, you've seen that work. Game Gear will work. PlayStation, now this was shown by other YouTubers, but I did everything possible and I could not get my PlayStation games to work. I don't know why. Let's go to MAME. This is what I want to focus on because I think this is great here. You can get all your MAME games. You're going to want to use your MAME 2003 set. That was the one that I found most functional with this platform. I could not get Final Burn Alpha games to run, so stick with MAME 2003. But one of the great things about this is if you hit R2, you can get to the MAME menu. That's your right shoulder 2 button, and then you can go to input this game and you can manipulate your controls. So you will not have any control issues of mapping buttons to the wrong button or controls to the wrong buttons. You can change them if you want in MAME, and that's very important for a game like Tron. It didn't map correctly, so I had to use the input this game, go to controls, and map the R1 and R2 or R1 L1 buttons for the dial so I could rotate when shooting. Metal Slug is a game you can play as well. You just need to make sure you put all the BIOS into the main MAME folder. That would be, I believe, the Neo Geo zip. And then here we go to the big problem that really upset me in the beginning. I loaded my vertical game Donkey Kong and boom, it came out like this, and I was like, turn it off, turn it off. What happened? I tried to go to the aspect ratio, but all you can do is go to widescreen, and that just makes it even worse. But there is a correction to this, and I'm going to show you that in a second, because this is very bizarre how I got this into the right aspect ratio. Now, what I did was I went out to the main system, the local drive, and I scrolled over to Pac-Man. Now, Pac-Man is in the correct aspect ratio. It may not be exactly perfect, but it looks pretty perfect to me, or at least good enough in the original state. You go back to the game, you load it up, and you will see here that when you start the game, it comes up in a nice looking aspect ratio, very playable in this format. You're going to run the game, and then here's what you're going to do. You're going to shut it down while you're in the game, the arcade version of Pac-Man. Boot it back up, and then you're going to go back to your SD card, into your MAME, into your Donkey Kong, and voila, look at that. It booted up into the right aspect ratio. Now, this alone makes this thing worth it to me. I can play all my Donkey Kongs correctly, all my vertical games, and those are some of my favorite games that I have. Also, if you move the sample files, the wave sample, the audio files, you will get audio here as well on Jumpman when he's doing his jumps and everything, so you're not missing audio bites in this MAME functionality. So make sure you know that you can put the sample files in and use these audio bites. Okay, doing this comes with a caveat though. If you stay in MAME and you go to any of your horizontal games, they load up in widescreen and you can't get out of it. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. What you have to do to fix it back to 4:3 for your horizontal games is go back into any Atari game, normal, boot it up, go to your settings. Then you need to go back to your display, switch it to, make sure you switch it to original, okay? Back to original. Then you're going to have to make sure it's an original as there, as you can see, 4:3. Then you're going to have to power it off. And then you're going to have to go back to your MAME external folder, your SD card, and then boot your games back up, your horizontal games, and then they come back to the right format. They really got to fix this. You really need to be able to save the aspect ratio, or maybe they need a third aspect ratio. I'm not really sure here, and then you need to be able to save it by game. All right, getting to some of the bugs here. Go to Pac-Man, and if you go to Atari 2600, this game is all jacked. It's not in the right aspect ratio. no matter how you put it on. But look at that. And then if you want to do widescreen, it even gets worse. You can't do that. So this one you'd actually have to run from the original 2600, and you can get it in the right aspect ratio. Here's another little, not glitch. This is what should happen, but Warlords didn't have difficulty settings. So if you go to try and get to any game that doesn't have a difficulty setting, it'll just pop you right out when you get into the difficult setting. It looks like it's crashing, but it's just saying, hey, you can't change the difficulty. Going to Atari 5200, here's a bug. You play the game, you use the trackball, or sorry, you have to use the D-pad on this. And when you die, if you're holding the D-pad at all in any direction after you die, you're going to see that the D-pad won't work anymore. So I'm holding the D-pad down just by chance, and now it doesn't work. I can't move the guy except up and down. So that's a little bug there, hoping they can fix that as well. Just some other bugs I had when loading the SD card games, the external games, the side loading. Sometimes I did have a crash or a freeze, but I just rebooted. A couple of the other things, the trackball is super sensitive on games like Missile Command. It's not the best trackball, but for the size and for what it is, I mean, it's pretty decent. You can actually play the game. Just know that for different games, you have way different sensitivities, and you'll have to get used to it for each game. As for the spinner, it feels pretty good, except mine has a small spot of drag. Just a little bit of drag at one of the parts. It depends what game you're playing, whether you're going to feel it if you have to go in a whole 360, but sometimes it's kind of annoying. Not sure every unit has it, but keep it in mind if you get it and you feel that. Hey, thanks for watching. Hopefully more to come, and don't forget to give it a thumbs up.